All right, so the next one here, Putin open to ceasefire with Russian conditions. So Russian President Vladimir Putin has signaled that he's open to a ceasefire in Ukraine, but that he has questions about the 30-day U.S.-Ukraine proposal that need to be discussed. Putin said, according to the New York Times, quote, "The idea itself is the right one, and we definitely support it, but there are questions that we need to discuss, and I think that we need to talk them through with our American colleagues and partners," end quote. The Russian leader listed potential conditions for a 30-day truce, including a guarantee that Ukraine would not be supplied with more weapons. He said, quote, "We also want guarantees that during the 30-day ceasefire, Ukraine will not conduct mobilization, will not train soldiers, and will not receive weapons," end quote. Putin also questioned who would monitor the ceasefire. He said, quote, "Who will determine where and who has violated a potential ceasefire agreement along a 2,000-kilometer line? Who will attribute blame for any violations? These are all questions that require thorough examination from both sides," end quote. The Russian leader said that any long-term peace deal needs to address the root causes of the war. He made the comments as U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Russia to discuss the proposal. Yuri Uzhakov, a Kremlin official, said Witkoff would be holding a closed-door meeting with Putin. Uzhakov also said that the U.S. proposal would only give Ukraine a chance to regroup and that it would need to be adjusted to meet Moscow's interests. So he made kind of similar comments to Putin, but he said that the official Russian position was going to be formulated by Putin and laid out to Witkoff in these talks. So good that it hasn't been outright rejected. He's saying that Russia has some pretty serious conditions for a 30-day ceasefire. I mean, I'm guessing what's happened here is that Witkoff went in and Putin gave Witkoff basically his response to the U.S.-Ukraine proposal, what it would take for Russia to agree to something like that. And now Witkoff is going to go back and bring that to Trump, and then we'll see what happens from there. I think Trump, if he really wants to end this war, is going to have to work with Russia. And I think he's going to have to, Marco Rubio, he's been saying, he's Marco Rubio. He's been saying some good things about this war, about Russia in general in the last few weeks. But recently, once this proposal came out, I mean, if you look at his rhetoric, he's saying, well, if they don't accept it, then we know who the impediment to peace is. He basically saying, if they don't accept it, then it's game on, proxy war on. This is just going to continue. That's what Rubio is sounding like. So I think, it could be a negotiation tactic, but I think that is what he's thinking. So I think there's still a chance for some kind of deal to happen here. But I think it's going to take a little while. I think there's going to be a negotiation back and forth for a little while. On the other hand, you have Ukraine. Ukrainian officials are all saying we're not going to make any territorial concessions, which Russia's demands now for a peace deal are Ukraine to recognize the 4 oblasts that they annexed as Russia, Ukrainian neutrality, and things like that. And Ukraine is saying right now that it's a red line. The territorial concessions are a red line. So that is a huge sticking point, and we will see what'll happen. But I do think a negotiation will go on for a little while. Either way, either if it gets rejected, if nothing happens, or if a deal is reached. I mean, Trump has shown he's willing to cut. I mean, who knows? It was only the military aid and intelligence was only paused briefly, but if he's really willing to use that as leverage over Zelensky's not really going to have much of a choice.
At the moment, is the U.S. government fully sharing intelligence with the Ukrainian military?
Well, we never, my best understanding, Bill, is that we never shut off intelligence for defensive, for anything defensive that the Ukrainians need. So that's never been shut off. And I think that you'll see that the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who are on their way to Saudi Arabia as we speak for talks with the Ukrainians, that topic will be on the discussion list.
Okay, is the same true for weapons in that war?
I would assume so. When you say the same true for weapons, you're talking about whether the spigot is shut on or off?
Correct.
I think that aid was shut off for a bit of time. I'm really not sure where we are. That would probably be a better question for our national security advisor.